Hi, I'm talking quite quiet because I've still not quite regained the ability to speak, and so I wanted to share this with you just as a guide to where Faster comes from, what it believes in, how it works. And so this is kind of a matrix to building a workout. This is something that I think every trainer needs to know. So this is where it came from, just so you know. This is a sort of just me doodling, putting together, well, what's everything? And so obviously prior to this you have to get the client in front of you, but at the moment I want to look at, we've got our client, what do we need to know, what skills are then going to be involved. And so initially we have our client, and our client could want any kind of result, any kind of goal. I'm going to call them a performance client, but they could equally be a rehab or injury prevention client. Just a word of warning on injury prevention. When you build injury prevention, you'll be literally looking to build the skills and hope that you hit enough of them so that they have the ability to avoid a position of injury. And it's not something to say, well, now you're more robust because the left side looks the same as the right. Just something to bear in mind. And so building a hierarchy of needs. So we have our client, and then our client comes with goals. They have a history and they have a current status. And so those three components come together to help you decide how you're going to build your program. So the goals that they come with are either going to be based in skill or physical change or a mixture of both. And if you're a skillful enough trainer at questioning your client, you'll find out both the skill and the physical change they want and be able to match the two. They'll have a history. So when they were born, they'll have moved their good way, and so they will have adopted movement patterns probably from their parents, just from using their own body, their own sort of unique movements and muscle placements and bone shapes. And then they will have developed sort of a way of moving. As they get injured, whether the injury caused pain or the injury was something that didn't cause pain but moved them slightly, depending on their movement experience and how they recovered from that, they may have something going on that just gives them a slightly off sort of biomechanical pattern, which may lead to nothing. The problem you have is determining an off biomechanical pattern is a really difficult thing to do because all biomechanical patterns could be different. So we have to look for sort of like big indicators where something just doesn't look like it should happen. And then we have to presume that they're missing the skill of it happening and go back to, can we build the skill of injury prevention? Can we build the skill of using that skill when nothing else is available? So that the history of the client is quite important, but it's also important to not make assumption at any stage. Then you have your current client. So their current condition, they could be injured or not injured. They've got a certain level of conditioning that will affect their skill and their physical condition. They'll have a natural skill level and they'll have a psychology about them that you have to manage to get them towards their goal. Once you start to break down each component of this, then you look at, well, the skill that they want to achieve will come about when you match their positioning, their pace, and their HMAC of what they do. So you're essentially saying, well, what does it look like when they produce the skill? And can we match all environments? And then pull one out and push one in, and can we match the extremes? Can we match the positions that might cause injury that are sat within that skill? For the physical side, we look at energy systems, nutrition, and link them together to say, how do we get a change in sort of body fat or muscle size and muscle reaction, so that the physical is all sort of down to an energy system. It's more sort of a physiology approach to getting the client to where they need to be. For their history, you need to look at sort of their previous and their current diagnosed injuries. And so if you take those into account, that might affect how they move and might allow you to make a little bit of presumption on some of the movements you see in the biomechanical assessment, but also it might give you a clue to what their next injury or their biggest risk of injury would be. And their movement experiences, what have they done through their lifetime to toughen them up, to move them well? What have they done that's specific to their skill as well? That would be the second thing to look at and sort of delve into. And then once you get all that information together, now you need to look at, well, where are they currently so that I can take them towards their goal. So do they have any pain that's diagnosed? Do they have pain that's not diagnosed? Do I have a professional in place to handle that? What's their conditioning like? How am I going to test it? How do I push the right energy system at the right time in the right skill to see what they're capable of and where they need to go? What do I need to measure to get them where we need to go? Also, what's their natural ability? Where do they naturally tend towards? And how can I use that to build this programming? What are their activities of daily life requirements? Are they pro sports and training a lot, so I have to work around that? Or do they do very little? Do I have to work around that? A lot of clients that have been shown to have postural dysfunction by other trainers, you might find just don't see enough different floor or surface or challenge in movement. And you're then saying, well, your activities of daily life are all about concrete and the floor and the grass, and what we want to do is add sand and stones and different floors to see how you can move across them, give you some different challenges to help you experience more movement. You've got to look at the client's natural skill. So we have a system of finding a 10, which is like their perfect movement for each motion, and their perfect right side might be different to their perfect left, but finding that natural skill and then being able to fatigue it will give you a really good idea of what breaks down first, so you can then go on to train it. And finally, you need to look at the psychology of the client. How am I going to keep them interested? How am I going to keep them training? What's their history of coaching and training that they liked and didn't like? What style of motivation do they need? How do I get into their head and help them get to their place? And if you put all this together, your result is not going to be based on one component. It's going to be based on a whole collection of things you're doing that come together to form your system. Now, your system might be different for every client, and probably will be, and it will definitely be specific to you, which is a good thing. What I'd want to see is you have that ability to mold and merge with the client you're in front of, and to not accept the praise for the client getting to their place, because really they got to their place because of so many factors, and you were part of it. Be proud, but don't necessarily say, well, if you hadn't done these 2 stretches, you would have been out forever, and so I'm brilliant, and you were just lucky to be part of my system. Respect that the body gets over stuff, the body does stuff, and a lot of the things about training and rehab aren't really proven that well yet. It's quite a young industry. So looking at how you get to these points. So for the skill, we look at analysis of the movement, and the HMAC, which is a bone by bone, joint by joint, muscle by muscle form, is a great way of doing that. There's also HMAC Connect, which will come out later in the year for FTE. The guys in Denver will see that. It's a good way to start place pacing and positioning at RAFT level. Then we already look at how do we match positioning and pace anyway. So bringing that together will give you the right skill. For the physical training, then it's all about how do we assess the energy systems and what's relevant to our client. Is absolute strength relevant, or is how much strength they can possibly produce while at the end of an aerobic component of fitness more important? So you're getting the physical matched is important. And we go through that a lot on our specialist functional performance and our specialist functional therapy. With our history, then delving into the history is all about getting the right question and answer. And so also looking at the goals and the skill and activity will be in that question and answer, so you know what to analyze and assess. But the Q&A is really going to get you into there. What have we got in front of us? What's the history? What's the dimension we don't see, that dimension of time where they did stuff when we weren't there? When we look at current, then the injury again is down that Q&A. And unless you're trained in diagnosis, I'd be saying it's always referral on pain. If it's diagnosed without a plan, it's still a referral in my book. If it's diagnosed with a plan, then I stay to the plan and I try and talk to the therapist. If it's not diagnosed, there's so much that could go on that if you can't diagnose, you should really get that out and get someone to find it out. Pain's more complicated than just biomechanics, and so you need someone who's really focused on that area of life to be able to get into that and delve and do what they do. And maybe you don't necessarily agree with all their exercise techniques, but at this point, an exercise technique has got a lot more to it than just the movement that you see. And so it's good to sort of let them go. I'd also say at this point, choose a good professional and make sure that they're using the right research to base their techniques on. For the conditioning, then it's about coaching. It's about seeing, well, how can we coach them to show us their ability to train, their ability to move. We've got a bit of Q&A in there to find out their current work and their activity of daily life requirements, but really the conditioning is about coaching. And especially when you start to develop the plan, you need to be good enough coach to get them to train through thresholds that will change their physical appearance and that will improve their skill level. And to get someone to move through a threshold is quite a tough thing, because you balance injury, you also balance psychology to get them to where you want them to go. With the natural skill, it's a mixture of assessment and coaching again, and we're looking at, can we find their 10? Can we connect them to their 10? So they get this subconscious feeling of this is a 10, this is a 10, this is how it feels when I move well, this is when it feels when I move off. Can I identify what that is, put it back to a 10? That's an important part of our coaching format. And then finally there's the psychology, because none of this works unless you can get that info and get them to train that hard. And so you have to get into the client's mind a little bit, and you have to work with them on their level, in their terms, in their terminology. I hope you found this interesting and useful. Obviously we use this to then base everything we do our courses on and start to bring that together for our programming and training. And that's sort of the things I'll be sharing with you on the course, and I'll share little snippets of that through our blog as well. If you're interested in this and doing some stuff with us, then we can help you do that. We run courses that don't work in a hierarchy, so it's not which course do I pick first, but it's more like which course will take me as far as I want to go. And so, for example, our advanced functional trainer might take you in to a certain level of function, like knee height, not actual knee, but So you're going in you're wading into a bit of information, but you're not sort of fully submersing, whereas our specialist course will throw you right in the middle, and our FTE course will throw you in and you'll be underwater with all our training concepts and principles. Then we have sort of small courses around the outside, which just kind of tickle what we do and then show you how it's implemented. And so coming soon we have Olympic lifting and our kinesio capture course. Currently we have our stop, turn, accelerate, rule the kettlebell, and training intention, which show you our thought process, give you a lot of practical application so you can go and find it. It's really worth clicking on our blog and just checking out what we do. You'll be able to find this voiceover if you found me on YouTube, and you'll be able to also find the notes for this, which you can download, which will be found on SlideShare. Thank you for listening.